All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glories to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son. All right, that would be Yahweh. Yahweh means He is, He exists. Bahashem, that means in the name. And Yahweh Shai means He saves, He delivers. He is our Redeemer. All right, those are the Paleo Hebrew and true names of the Heavenly Father once again in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, in the correct language, the Paleo Hebrew, which is the Lashon Kodash, or the Proto-Canaanite language. All right, I learned this from the elders and apostles, in whom I will give double honors. Those men of great millstone, GMS, preaching this truth and sincerity on the highways and hedges, risking their lives and freedom to do so. Shalom to the household of faith, the true Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and those of you who look like the other nations throughout the world, but go back to the line of Israel. All right. Also, a shalom to the few sisters out there listening and learning in silence, as the scriptures say to do so. Shalom to you. I'm the brother Tassad Ban Yehoda, coming at you with a quick one in the spirit. The Lord's willing, this one is edifying. It is based upon a scenario that plays out in America, aka Babylon the Great, that has to do with the systemic oppression of our people. It divides households, right? And the worst affected is the children. All right, so I want to begin with a precept that I would like to begin with, and it's in the book of Timothy, 1 Timothy, chapter 5, verses. I'll read 7 and 8. It says, "And these things give in charge, that they may be blameless." So you want to be blameless. It says, "But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than an infidel." All right, because when you're dealing with matters of your home, your house, I should say, your family, especially your children, you don't want to be found an infidel, somebody who's not trustworthy or reliable. You know, your children should always be able to come to you for want of things. But as we know, in this place, Babylon the Great, we are yet in our captivity, subject to payments, and so it can make things a bit difficult for a man to operate and navigate. So I'll read this, what you see on the screen there, from the Father's Rights Movement. It says, "Want to know a horrifying secret? States are getting paid by the federal government for using the family court to force divorced parents out of the lives of their children." Yep, it's true. Here's the law that funds it. So I don't want you to take this as any legal advice, as I am not a lawyer nor an attorney. Okay, so that is my disclaimer. But this is Social Security Act, Title 4, Part D, Section 458, where it's titled "Incentivized Payments to States." And we'll get into that. It says, "Now you know," Shalakia, it says, "Now you know one reason why family law is so screwed up. States are making money by creating absent parents." All right, so what we see is this, basically. We see the Social Security Act, Title 4, Part D, is based on performance of pooled participants, which in turn incentivizes the states to automate child support enforcement pursuant to another law. Again, this is not legal advice, which is 42 USC, or United States Code 658A. And that portion of the law goes into Title 4A. Title 4A is what they would call a block grant. And also Title 4A is for temporary assistance for needy families. That's that program, 42 USC 65A. All right, so in their system, there's nothing fair and impartial in their processes, right? This is Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. All right, so a lot of presumptions are made in those courts. They create, as it says here, they create the absent parent, the what they call the non-custodial parent, the parent that doesn't have physical custody of the child, and they do this through a mechanized process. So, case in point, if you're going through a divorce, and say the woman, just for example, files for the divorce, she's also going to file for primary physical custody, leaving you the non-custodial parent. Okay? Now, what that does is it gives her more rights than you, right, in the courts. And so with that right there kickstarts the Title 4D child support enforcement program, whereas they can, you know, you know, based upon your income, they often presume your income a lot of times too, unless you go into the courts and provide your financials as far as what you make per hour, and then they will base what you make, per child, and they will pretty much take will charge you X amount of dollars that you are to pay to child support. All right. So again, Title 4A is for temporary assistance for needy families, and it is a block grant. A grant is a gift. You need to understand this. All right, so a gift that is given without any counterbalance in tender or payment, which means they don't have to pay it back. So what they're doing with the participants in the Title 4D program, or named participants or non-custodial parents, is they're charging them twice. And here's what I mean. Now, say for instance that so-called custodial parent is leaning on the community for SNAP EBT benefits, right? Now, you as a working man, the non-custodial parent, you're paying taxes, and those taxes go to SNAP benefits / EBT. So you are already paying your fair share for that child support that they're now coming after you for. So don't quote me. This is not legal advice, but this is just some information that I'm passing along, right? So the issue that's to be taken is how the court initially wrongly presumes you the non-custodial parent, right? Which is also can mirror defamation of character. Again, this is not legal advice, but they're defaming you. They're telling you that you're a non-custodial parent, right? And an obligor or a debtor, right? So they're changing your name into a commercial product, and they're also using your children as products, right? So that's one aspect of looking at it. That's one way of looking at it. All right. The Title 40 mechanisms, they attempt to coerce payment, all right, through the state. The state is the agencies, right? The state is an agent of the federal government, and the states have their respective agencies called child support agencies, right? And they have their own particular courts called, a lot of times family justice or family court, and these are often privatized institutions with what you call nonprofit status. All right, and so these agencies are incentivized to get as many cases as possible so that they can get that title for a block grant on an annual basis. All right, so as it concerns that, I did have some information. I says for the fiscal year of 2025, states received $735 million to find people guilty in child support hearings that are once again based on how many cases that they can push through. So that's a pretty healthy amount of money, that the state is getting in block grants or funds to fund their operations there. All right. So when it comes to this thing, some men, some women, even that have to pay child support, have been arrested for failing, for whatever reason, to make those payments. Their primary concern, I'm speaking on the state now, the state's primary concern is not necessarily your child, as a child is ultimately the responsibility of both mom and dad of that offspring. All right, so again, fellas, again, ladies, if you are considered a non-custodial parent, do what you can to make sure that your visitation is solid, and any support that's needed for that child, as far as maybe clothing, food, gifts, things of that nature. You want to make sure that you show up for your child, because your child, didn't ask to be here for one. It's the will of the Heavenly Father, but it's also the will of the Heavenly Father that you don't be found an infidel, right? That you provide for your household, for your children, all right? Regardless of what you and her or you and him went through, make sure that your priorities are in line with and conducive to a healthy family, a stable environment for your child, I should say, because it's, the courts, again, they divide families. That's their job, okay? Because they are incentivized to do so. They get kickbacks, which is illegal in some circles. But again, this is not legal advice, and you'd have to go above and beyond to prove those claims. Okay, so the state's concerned with money. They do what they do for profit and their healthy pensions, i.e., retirement funds. Okay, so they don't have any real dog in the fight, or as it were, or any stock in your child besides that case. So they deal with multiple cases every day. So it's like clockwork how they run through people, and they get these orders and judgments entered in a systemic, automatic fashion. So they don't have no love for you. So you go in there with your emotions, laying it all on the line, your heart on your sleeves. That judge doesn't care about anything besides getting an order and for Title 4D to kick in so that he can get paid. That's it. Don't take it personal, right? But it is an unjust and unrighteous decree. Remember, the Heavenly Father is about balance, and a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. So these judges are not judging fairly and impartially, right? They want to call themselves judges, magistrates. Fair and impartial is not in their vocabulary. They don't want to hear anything about the Constitution. They don't want to hear anything about your actual rights. All right? Isaiah 10, it says, in verse 1, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people. So again, they don't care, these people, these Edomites, because this is their system. They have set it up to take away your rights, right? To violate those rights at every turn and opportunity they get for the sake of a dollar, all right? These courts, they presume by default that you owe them money. They also presume you to be a deadbeat parent, even with evidence to the contrary. Their concern is slam dunk wins no matter who get hurt. And again, the children suffer the worst when their parents are divided by these family courts. Now, I use the word presume, and I'm here to also provide you with definition with the word presume. To presume is an idea that is taken to be true. You see that? Let me repeat that. It's an idea that is taken to be true and often used as the basis for other ideas. So if they presume you a deadbeat parent, then you're already walking into a situation, whereas they have already presumed, which means before, They have already chalked it up as, okay, you're going to pay this child support no matter what you say in this court. We got you by the balls, and it's over for you. We're going to garnish your wages. We're going to threaten to take away your driver's license, and if you don't pay us, which sounds like some mafioso activities, okay, then they can, go ahead and threaten imprisonment, because they have done that and have followed through, with those threats, and thrown brothers in prison. You see? So it says, basically, in law, a presumption places blame on an individual before ever hearing the truth or the facts of all sides. They often keep the children in the case away from proceedings. If you notice that when you go to the child support court, if you ever had the quote unquote pleasure of being in the child support proceeding, you notice that the children are never there. It's as if the children's thoughts don't even matter. I have my personal experience. My child, wanted to go with with daddy. And it breaks my heart that my ex, she had the audacity to do what she did, knowing that my son and I have a very close relationship and a close bond, and to spite me, for in many cases being the bigger person. She's like, oh, well, if I can't hurt you, by trying to out argue you or whatever it is, whatever she had in her mind, it was based on emotion with her. She was always emotional, always unraveled, very disrespectful to myself, my child, and my family. She figured she could use the courts. And a lot of women have weaponized the court system to go after brothers. Even when the brother's doing right, doing the best he can, working all them hard hours to provide for his family, because that's what we're supposed to do. So we don't get a cookie for that. We're supposed to take care of our children. We love our children. I don't know too many Jakes that don't love their children. But when you involve Esau, you put him in the mix, the dynamics shift. The oppression starts. And it's not that brothers got pride, but in a sense, I guess it is what it is, man. We don't like white people in our business, period. Not to say that all judges are white, because we know that ain't true. But for the most part, the system is set up by white people. The so-called, what the Bible called the Edomite. Okay? All right, so, and they even got it in the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which supposedly now guarantees that you have a fair trial. But it's like this, man. How can you have a fair trial in a state hearing under state codes where the states are incentivized to find a party guilty? Like I say, it's a no-win situation for anybody that's deemed a non-custodial parent, and they have it set up like that, right? And what do they have at their disposal? Plausible deniability. If you ever can prove them or disprove what they're saying, you bring the law. There's not very many attorneys that's going to go in there and fight for you and actually win a case. A lot of times, if you actually got your facts and your stuff together, and you go in there on some righteousness, right? You've been taking care of your child. They're going to try to settle with you because they know that they wronged you, they've harmed you, they damage your reputation, oftentimes your credit score, your opportunity to get work. If they take your license away, how are you going to be able to, you can catch a bus, but what's the reality of that in today's climate, especially if you live in a far out place where you got to have your own wheels, you see? And these women, they use it as a license. Some of these men, they use it as a license, It's about being fair. It's about talking about both sides, all right? John 7:24, I believe this is something that Yahweh Shai would say to these crooked magistrates. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Let me repeat that. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Now, These magistrates and these judges, they cannot judge righteously because, again, they incentivized to perform and meet a certain quota, so they can get that block grant, so they can get paid. Again, they don't care about the child. They don't care about either party. They care about that bag. All right. So I'm gonna get you one more precept, and I'm gonna close it out. Let's see. All right, it's a good one. Just about lawyers, because a lot of them magistrates and judges, of course, they started off as lawyers. They take the bar, which is rumored to be the British accredited registry, right? Which that's an Edomite thing. But this is the book of Luke, chapter 11:46, and I'll end it here. It says, "Woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye laid men with burdens grievous to be borne, and ye yourselves touch not the burdens with one of your fingers." So they're not subject to any child support payments or any, because they are in the inner circle. They do favors for one another. You see, they're lawyers, so they know all the tricks of their trade, right? They operate on procedural circumstances and mechanisms. They don't actually study the law. They just study the procedures. Well, what do we do to achieve X, Y, Z? All right, that's how they operate. So with that being said, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father for the enlightenment, right? So all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha Kudash. All right. Peace and salutation to my fellow Akim out here laboring in this truth. Peace and salutations. Again, brothers and sisters, keep your head up, and awareness is the first step, acknowledging what the problem is, right? And praying on it, meditate on it, pray without ceasing, all right? So you'll know what to say when they drag you before the magistrate, before they deliver you up, as it were. All right, so with that being said, to the next one, Shalom.